Now, let's say a few words about the Connecticut school massacre. Preface, guns are a wedge issue. Don't ever forget it. Guns are a wedge issue. They're a classic wedge issue. They belong to the political cycle, which is now closed. That's when they emerged, 1968 to 2008. Guns, God, gays. These issues are all, although of interest to some, beside the point on the big stuff. The big stuff is economics. That's where you want to put your effort. Don't be led into making gun control the main issue. Gun control is not the main issue. Don't waste your time on it, because there are already ponderous forces in the field on that. The front you want to go to is the Wall Street sales tax, because that's where small forces and agitating loudly can make a big difference by putting on the agenda an idea whose time has come. But when it comes to the Connecticut school massacre, another preface is that Obama is using this. The Democratic Party in general wants to get a gun control hysteria going, because with that, they will get left cover. They have to refurbish their left cover. It's been rather frayed lately, right? What with Afghanistan, what with killer drones and Terror Tuesdays, and the rest of it, right? Obama's left-wing sheen has been largely compromised. So he thinks that with the gun control, he can sort of refurbish his left cover, and then using that, he can stab you in the back. That's when he has the capability to beat down the Progressive Caucus and the rest of these people who might otherwise complain, the Bernie Sanders of the world, shut them up and proceed with the chain CPI and similar measures, the human toll of which far exceeds these terrible events of the last month. Now, in terms of the immediate specifics of the Connecticut school massacre, I would simply say, take a look at my Twitter feed. We have WCBS Channel 2 New York, as well as the CBS affiliate in Hartford, Connecticut, reflecting the events in this small town of the Housatonic River Valley, sadly enough, Newtown, Connecticut. The official version has now emerged. What I did in the first hours of this, and I've captured these quotes, is to go to a number of websites. What we find there is that John Miller of CBS News, who was a former deputy director of the FBI, he's somebody who wrote a book about 9/11. He was part of the, how can I say it? He was part of shepherding the explosion in 1993 at the World Trade Center. He's part of that group, but now a CBS correspondent. He reported that a possible second shooter had been arrested in the woods, wearing camouflage. Well, the details emerged later. So John Miller, he reported it. And then Pete Williams, the NBC Justice correspondent, reported the same thing. So we got CBS News and NBC News report that a possible second shooter was arrested in the woods. And the CBS local affiliates there in Connecticut and New York City have an eyewitness, a blonde guy, and you can see this. I put this out as a tweet, I believe on the 19th or 20th here of December. You can follow that link if it's still there. They're disappearing. To a guy who says that this guy was in the woods. He was wearing camouflage pants and a black jacket or a black top somehow. And this guy was put into a police car and kept saying, "I didn't do it." Now, the inherent problem of these official stories is always the second shooter, as we've seen. In the case of Major Hassan at Fort Hood, there were reports of a second shooter. In the case of Breivik in Norway in the spring-summer of 2011, there are very, very detailed reports of a second shooter, in this case with detailed eyewitness reports. In the case of Mutalab, the Christmas Day 2009 underwear bomber, there was a well-dressed man who brought him to the check-in and got him on the plane, and so forth. So whenever you've got a second shooter, you have exited the realm of the lone assassin and the lone troubled individual. And the problem that we have now is, even though these second shooter reports were very prominent in the initial hours, they've all disappeared. and they've disappeared without any comment. In other words, they've just been sanitized, they've been scrubbed from the websites. It's as if they didn't occur. Well, I did take the precaution of copying these things, getting some screenshots and so forth. So there is no doubt that it was there. And even the NBC Evening News last Friday had to say that one of the main problems of the Connecticut events was that so much disinformation had been put into circulation. In other words, the information management side of this seems to have been the weakest that we've had in recent years. Now, what do we do about all this? As I say, don't be lured into making this the main going Again, there's nothing that light forces can do about this. There's no way that intervening on one or the other sides of this is going to lead to anything. I, at the same time, have to call attention to the unreality of the, the gun fetishists. We got people who think that gun ownership is by itself a political act. It is not. Gun ownership gets you nowhere politically. Indeed, it can get you in negative just as well as positive directions. The gun hysteria is a feature of the past 40 years. It has to do with the reactionary cycle, which we should be exiting about now, which we could be exiting, and maybe we even are. But, of course, it's all up for grabs. It's all going to be determined by struggle and free will and human agency. But the possibility is that the prominence of guns as a wedge issue could recede. That would be the goal, to eclipse that with class struggle on economic issues and not be diverted into these questions, because the guns yes or guns no will never get you out of a world economic depression and will never reduce the threat of a general war of the type that we have today. The gun fetishist argues, I think in the last analysis, that guns are essential, that they're somehow more than a hobby, more than sports, more than hunting, but they're a means of defense against the totalitarian government. And I have to say, bunk, baloney. Let's look at these people, right? The people who are most vociferous about guns, what did they spend 2011, 2012 doing? Behind the, with their guns in the closet, or maybe even on display, they came out and supported Ron Paul's fascist economics, the cut of 62% in food stamps. That's genocide. Sorry. If you have 50 million people who are living on $1.50 per person per meal, and you say, I'm going to cut that to 50 cents per person per meal, that will kill people. So the idea that somehow the gun owners, with their reactionary libertarian mentality, are somehow a guarantee against totalitarian government, I don't see it. And rather, I see that they're just as likely to become gangs on the side of the strikebreakers, quite frankly. So I would guide you away from this issue. This is not where the future of the world will be decided. Tragic as these events certainly are deplorable, and of course we join in condemning them, it's important to maintain the focus where big changes can be made through the intervention of small groups of people. That's called the Wall Street sales tax. That's called seizing the Fed and using it to finance a recovery. So let's conclude our Christmas broadcast with Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, Happy Holidays, Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, and all other applicable festivities to all. See you next week.